Hang on up the hill a little bit.
What the is that?
We got a target here. Came up from behind a tree.
My hair stood up from the back of my neck. It felt like it was coming from the trees.
Some places feel different, heavy, charged, alive. From the misty ridges of Georgia to the haunted woods of Ohio, from family campsites to the deadly Alaskan Triangle, the wilderness is hiding something. These are not just stories. They are encounters, testimonies, and moments where ordinary people came face to face with the unknown. Tonight, we're retracing 6 of the most chilling accounts ever told, where every shadow hides a possibility, and every noise in the dark might be something watching you. This remarkable footage comes from the hit series Expedition Bigfoot, and what it captures is one of the most intense moments of their entire investigation. Mireya and Russell were deep in the mountainside, working with what they called the ultimate tracking system, an advanced piece of technology capable of detecting bipedal figures that human eyes might miss. Then, suddenly, the system lit up. They had a hit. Russell was already in the field, taking up position, while Bryce monitored the surveillance array. The team could see Russell's live feed on the monitors when something unexpected happened. A figure appeared on the array. It moved from behind a tree, partially visible, but undeniably upright, and it wasn't a member of their team. "That's not one of us," Bryce confirmed. Who or what was it?
There's Russ right there.
Russ to Bryce. I hear you, Russ. Go for Bryce. You should be able to see me. Do you have me?
Yeah, we do see you on the surveillance array. Looking good, buddy.
Awesome, man. Let me know if there's anything I need to pay attention to.
Copy that.
Thank you, Bryce.
Stay safe.
Hang on up the hill a little bit.
What the is that?
We got a target here. Came up from behind a tree.
Bryce quickly radioed Mireya, urging her to get closer to the target. Meanwhile, Russell scanned the soil beneath his feet, picking up disturbances, impressions, signs that something large had been moving through this area recently. And then things got even stranger.
Holy.
Hey, Maria. The AI's acquired a target coming up to you.
It's really close. I'd say about 200 yards to the southwest, and it looks big. Are you seeing anything?
I'm not seeing anything. I'm going to keep going in the southwest direction. Keep your eyes on it and let me know if it changes direction. All right, let's keep moving.
Bryce spotted movement again. This time something was coming fast, heading straight toward Russell's position. Russell received the direction and immediately moved to intercept. His breathing quickened, the forest eerily quiet around him except for the sound of distant rain. Meanwhile, Mireya was still closing in on the first heat signature. That's when the team realized something shocking. They weren't tracking just one figure. There were 2 targets.
I'm seeing a lot of stuff in the soil, disturbances. This whole area has been pushed up a little bit.
As Mireya heads towards the heat signature, on the other side of the mountain, Russell searches his target area.
A lot of stuff moving right through here. It's almost like I feel a little hidden sidewalk here.
Holy. I am getting something coming up on Russ. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, it's big.
But the conditions were quickly turning against them. The mountain weather shifted without warning. The drizzle became heavy rain, and waves of dense fog began rolling in, cutting visibility to almost nothing. The tracking system started to fail. "We're losing signal," Bryce called out. With the storm worsening and the targets vanishing into the mist, the team was left with more questions than answers. Who or what were they closing in on? And were they the hunters or the hunted? One thing was certain. Whatever was out there had vanished just as quickly as it had appeared, swallowed by the fog.
Russ for Bryce.
Russell, I got you loud and clear, man.
Something just broke a stick out in front of me.
Less than 100 yards. How close am I?
If you stay that course, you should be able to intercept.
Copy that. Moving in.
It's just incredibly hard right now with this terrain and this weather.
Footage courtesy of Destination America. This chilling account is taken straight from one of their most unforgettable episodes. A first-hand testimony from a seasoned camper. This wasn't a weekend getaway or a casual family trip. This was deep in the wilderness, remote, rugged, the kind of place you only venture into if you know what you're doing. No fun and games, no tourist campfires. This was survival country. As the sun dipped below the tree line, painting the forest in fading orange light, the group made a decision. Instead of stopping for the night on a mossy finger ridge, they pushed on, another half-mile before making camp. That choice would lead them straight into one of the most terrifying nights of their lives.
We left the trailhead probably, I'm gonna say, around 2 o'clock. We ended up going probably about 1.5 miles past Camp Pleasant.
They were tired but alert, trekking carefully through the brush when it happened. A sound, loud, heavy, violent, shattered the silence. We stopped dead in our tracks, the camper recalled. That crash was big, too big for a branch falling. Something made that sound. Before they could even process it, something else happened. A rock, a large one, came crashing down, landing just 10 feet to their left. It wasn't a random fall, it had been thrown. "That's when it hit me," he said. "Someone was out there," or something fierce surged through them.
And then all of a sudden we hear this crash. And we just kind of stopped. And the only thing that I could think of at the time was maybe we spooked an elk because the crash was pretty big. It sounded heavy. As we're peering to the left, all of a sudden here comes a rock. And it lands about 10 feet to the left of us. It was deliberately thrown. And at that point, time just kind of freezes.
Were they being hunted? Was this an ambush? The forest felt suddenly alive with tension, every shadow now suspect. And then it happened again. Another rock, same size, same weight, landed in the exact same spot as the first. Deliberate, calculated. "That's when it got real," he admitted. "This wasn't random. Whatever it was letting us know it was there."
As we're processing that, another rock flies and lands, almost hits the other one, very accurately thrown, lands about 10, 12 feet to the left of us again. And then it's just like it got real at that moment. There was an overwhelming feeling of being in trouble, being in danger. Something felt very wrong. It was a very dreadful feeling.
The group went into full panic mode and ran. The woods, once quiet, now seemed to close in around them. Every step felt heavy, every second stretched into slow motion. Adrenaline flooded their bodies, but it wasn't enough to drown out the dread. That's when the camper remembered. He had a .357 Magnum in his pack. He stopped, hands shaking, and pulled out the weapon. It was his only source of confidence in that moment. He turned, and that's when he saw it. Standing just beyond the tree line was a figure, massive, dark, its shoulders impossibly wide, its posture upright and powerful. "I knew what I was looking at," he said. That was Bigfoot. Time seemed to freeze. The creature didn't move. It just stood there, watching.
I don't know if you've ever been in a dream and something's chasing you and you're having a difficult time moving. It was almost like everything was in slow motion. I'm headed down the ridge at this point, and I remembered that I had a .357 in my backpack. I stopped, pulled out my gun, and just very quickly looked back. I saw Bigfoot.
In that instant, he had a choice. Fight or run. He could have taken the shot, but he didn't. Instead, survival instinct took over. He turned and ran, crashing through the forest, not stopping until he was far, far from that ridge. Even now, he says, the memory of those thrown stones still makes his skin crawl.
And I knew exactly what was throwing the rocks at us at that point. It was very large. The light was faded to a point to where I couldn't make out facial features, but I was absolutely terrified. I can tell you without a doubt that was one of the scariest moments of my life.
This footage, taken from the Travel Channel's YouTube archives, tells one of the most disturbing family encounters ever documented. It began not with a sighting, but with a feeling. It was an ordinary afternoon. The family had been outside, enjoying the yard, when the mother suddenly froze. "I got goosebumps," she later said. "It felt like something was coming from the trees." There was no sound, no movement, and yet the stillness felt wrong, heavy, charged, as if someone unseen was standing just out of sight, watching. Then she noticed something that made her heart drop. The children's swings, which had been still just moments ago, were now swaying back and forth, slowly, rhythmically. The children themselves were nowhere to be seen. Panic set in.
It was just an eerie feeling. My hair stood up from the back of my neck. It felt like it was coming from the trees. The kids, they weren't there. There was nobody.
Both parents began shouting their names, running across the yard, searching desperately. And then they saw them, standing at the edge of the tree line, completely still, completely silent. "They looked frozen," the mother said, "like they weren't really there." The children were standing shoulder to shoulder, facing the trees, unmoving, as if in a trance.
Tom! I was searching for them and yelling for them, but they wouldn't respond to us.
Tom! April! It was scary.
Tom! I was scared. You know, that's my son, my only son. Tom! To me, the military instinct is just try to find them.
I think I see them.
I ran through the bushes and the trees that were there. Thank God that we found them.
Tom.
And I said, "What are y'all doing?"
Tom, I'm glad you're okay.
They were like kind of hypnotized, like they were in a trance-like state.
When the parents rushed to them, the kids didn't speak at first. They simply turned, slowly, as though waking up from a dream. When the mother pressed them, they told her something that chilled her blood. "The man in black was calling us," they said. "He told us to come." Who was this man? No one had been seen, no footsteps heard, and yet the children were convinced they had followed someone, or something, into the woods. The mother's instincts told her to get the children inside. She grabbed them by the hands and rushed them back to the house. But the father, a former serviceman, stayed behind. His training told him to investigate.
The kids did say that they followed somebody.
They said the man in black was calling them, and that the man in black called them into the woods.
Man in black?
It was kind of creepy, you know?
Take them. I'm gonna find them.
Come on, let's go back.
He moved toward the trees, scanning the ground, listening for any movement. He expected to catch a glimpse of a trespasser, a prankster, maybe even a wild animal, but there was nothing. "I had that feeling," he admitted, "that someone was still there, but I couldn't see them. And then I just decided to stop, to pretend like nothing had happened. It was the only way to calm the children and themselves. But they knew what they had experienced was not nothing. That night, the house was locked up tight. No one slept well.
I searched everywhere, trying to see if I could find this man in black. But I didn't find nobody.
After that day, I would get chills. You know, goosebumps.
I tried to kind of like ignore the situation. I'm trying to think it's not real, but I was afraid.
The mother kept replaying the moment over and over. The empty yard, the swinging swings, the children standing silent at the tree line. Whatever had called to her kids that day, she believed, wasn't human. And deep down, they all knew it might come back. Nestled between Akron and Cleveland lies one of the most hauntingly beautiful stretches of wilderness in Ohio. Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Its name alone stirs nostalgia for locals who grew up fishing its creeks, hiking its trails, or riding the scenic railway that winds through the heart of the valley. But behind that picturesque charm, the park holds a reputation that is anything but serene. For decades, whispers of strange sightings and unexplained encounters have echoed through these hills. Some blame local folklore, others call it superstition, but those who have seen it with their own eyes aren't laughing. Filmmaker and investigator Seth Breedlove of Small Town Monsters returned to this park to chase one such report. A brand new sighting that took place frighteningly close to a location that already has a dark history. To understand this encounter, Seth retraces the story of Joe Kesky's infamous 1995 sighting, where what appeared to be a tree stump suddenly rose out of the water, charging through the marsh, thrashing and splashing as though determined to drive Joe and his friends away. That incident alone might have been dismissed as youthful imagination, if not for what happened years later, only a few hundred yards away.
It was July 7th. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. It was like already 92 degrees outside. Very hot day. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. I was walking these railroad tracks, and when I got halfway down, there's like a covert going under the railroad tracks.
The more recent witness, who has asked to remain anonymous, remembers the day vividly. It was July 7th, she recalls. A brutally hot summer morning, 92 degrees already by 11 o'clock. I was walking along the railroad tracks with my dogs, the kind of quiet, sun-drenched day where you can hear every sound. I stopped on a culvert overlooking the swamp. That's when I saw it. Something tall, impossibly tall, stepped across the tracks ahead of her. It was jet black from head to toe, she said. What froze me was how it moved. It didn't step on the tracks, it stepped over them. Like the entire rail meant nothing to it. She stood there in shock, her dogs still sniffing the brush, blissfully unaware of what had just passed before them. Then the feeling crept in, the primal warning that you are being watched. I called my dogs back. The moment I did, it came back around the thicket. Whatever it was, it crouched down low and just stared at me. I didn't wait to see what it would do next. I ran straight for the houses near the trailhead and told a ranger what I saw. They laughed at me. Her voice hardens at the memory. They treated me like I was making it up, like I'd just seen a hiker. But I know what I saw, and it wasn't a hiker. This kind of dismissal isn't unusual. Even back when Joe Kesky tried to report his sighting, local authorities turned it into a joke, passing it along to the fire department with a chuckle. Yet sightings persist, and many of them, like this one, describe a creature with jet black hair. Researcher Sonia Horstman points out that while Bigfoot sightings in Ohio typically mention brown or reddish fur, there is a strange concentration of reports here in Cuyahoga Valley describing a black figure, tall, thin, and unnervingly quiet. And this witness's story is not an isolated case.
My son would be out there skiing, and of course I'd be asking the people who work there, any good Bigfoot stories? Any good Bigfoot stories? And they said yes, they've been seen at the edge where they have the snow machines blowing. They've been seen watching the snow machines.
Do you think,
again,
like
black
daytime or
Bigfoots.
nighttime?
Well, they do it during the day and night, I think, but they were seen there. I'm pretty sure it was during the day, but they blow those snow machines all day, all night, you know, when the weather's just right.
Yeah.
In 2015, years after her original sighting, she returned to the park with a friend after a snowstorm. Near an old cabin, she spotted a line of bare footprints in the snow, each print spaced nearly 6 feet apart. You could see the mid-tarsal break clear as day, she remembers. They weren't sinking into the snow like we were. Something heavy had walked straight through without breaking the crust. Following the tracks, they found the remains of a deer partially buried near the creek. Whatever left those prints had been feeding there recently, and was likely still nearby.
I can with her see how she is. So we went down in the creek, and we're walking way back in there, and I probably get maybe 500 feet back in there, and she puts her head down and she starts growling really low.
For longtime visitors, the valley is full of these unnerving moments. Sonia tells of ski lodge employees spotting something watching the snow machines, and other hikers reporting large figures crossing open fields near the ranger station. Each story adds to the sense that there is a presence here, not just passing through, but returning again and again. Researchers like Mark Mazel believe the park's waterways are the key. The Cuyahoga River and its many tributaries form a perfect natural corridor for a large animal to travel unseen, slipping in and out of the valley without leaving a trace. For a nocturnal, highly intelligent creature, this would be ideal habitat, and its proximity to towns only deepens the mystery. The valley's lore is tied not just to cryptids, but to legend. Locals still speak of Helltown, an abandoned village on the park's edge rumored to be cursed, or the site of a government cover-up. When you connect the history, the folklore, and the sheer number of modern sightings, you get a picture of a place that is more than just a park. It is a crossroads, where wilderness, memory, and myth collide. Maybe that's why people keep coming back, despite the fear. Maybe it's the river winding through the heart of the valley, or the rolling trails that promise to take you far from ordinary life. Or maybe it's the pull of the unknown, the sense that just beyond the next tree line, something might be standing there, watching, waiting. Whatever this witness saw that July morning, she never forgot it. For her and for many others, Cuyahoga Valley is no longer just a scenic escape. It is a place where the ordinary world slips away, and the shadows hold something very real. Daylight filters gently through the canopy of the Chattahoochee National Forest, dappling the forest floor with shifting patterns of gold and green. Here in North Georgia, the air carries the sharp, earthy scent of wet leaves and rushing water from the nearby creek. Standing near the stream in a quiet clearing is Sam, a man who has been fishing these waters for more than 30 years. He isn't just a fisherman, he's a storyteller, a keeper of secrets, and today he's sharing something far more unsettling than tales of trophy trout. "This is Warwoman Dell," Sam says, gesturing toward the forest around him. "I've camped here more times than I can count. But it's not just a good place to fish. It's a place with history. Deep history." He's right. Warwoman Dell takes its name from a powerful Cherokee woman, most likely Nanyehi, also known as Nancy Ward, a beloved woman who sat on the Cherokee General Council and played a critical role in the 1755 Battle of Taliwa. In Cherokee culture, the title Warwoman wasn't ceremonial. It meant she had the authority to decide questions of war and peace, and her wisdom guided her people in some of their darkest hours. Even now, standing in the quiet of this forest, the name carries weight. It feels like a place where decisions, big, life-altering decisions, were once made. But Sam's stories are not about history. They are about something far stranger. In 2009, he begins, a group of young boys camped out here. Just kids, you know, probably about the age I was when I first started coming here. That night, one of them woke up to the sound of rocks hitting near the camp. Small rocks tossed from the dark. He stepped out of the tent and looked toward the stream. That's when he saw it. On the far side of the water, a huge figure just standing there, watching.
Young boys were camping here, and overnight the one boy woke up and had small rocks were hitting the side of the tent. He went out, it was the middle of the night, he looked at the other side of the stream. He saw a huge figure there that was just washing its hands in the water. Didn't seem to be scared of him at all, and it slowly walked back into the solitude of the forest.
By morning, they went to investigate, but not long after that, the Department of Natural Resources closed this spot to all overnight camping.
The next morning, they all got up and they went across to where the one boy had seen the figure and saw that everything was trampled down. Well, mysteriously, after that, the DNR closed off this place to any overnight camping. The only thing you can do now is picnic during the day.
No explanation, no reason given, just closed. Sam shakes his head and lets out a slow breath. That's when I started thinking maybe I wasn't crazy after all.
I called the DNR and asked them, why is this road closed? And why is this place not open to overnight camping? And they just pleaded, we don't know, it's just closed. And that's basically what's gone on here.
He goes on to tell of the first time he camped here in the fall of 2014 with his brother-in-law, a retired Air Force man who isn't the type to rattle easily. The two men spent their days fishing and their evenings sitting by the water, lanterns glowing, sipping a couple of cold beers.
My brother-in-law and I camped, and we've camped here a couple of times trout fishing during the day. Well, the first time we came here was the fall of 2014. At night, we would come back from fishing, eat our supper, and come down to the water with the camping lantern and have a couple of brews.
The first night I smelled it, Sam says. Strong, like a skunk, but heavier, musky. My brother-in-law thought I was imagining things until about the third night when he admitted he smelled it too. And that wasn't all. On 3 separate nights, they heard distinct wood knocks from the opposite side of the creek.
And I started noticing that when the sun came down, I smelt a very strong skunk-like odor. My brother-in-law, who's a no-nonsense Air Force guy who's retired, he finally admitted he smelled it about the third night. Well, besides that, 3 or 4 nights, I heard wood knocks coming from the other side of the creek.
And on the last night, Sam recalls, there was more than one. You could hear them knocking back and forth, almost like they were signaling to each other. 3, maybe 4 different spots. It was, unnerving.
The last night we were here, there was actually more than one, whatever it was, knocking, several, probably at least 3 up in that area, knocking back at one another. Well, we left and then we came back.
Years later, in the spring of 2015, Sam returned to the same place. This time he brought apples, hoping to coax whatever was out there a little closer. People say Bigfoot's like apples, he says with a half smile.
We came back spring of 2015, same place, and my brother-in-law, he wouldn't have nothing to do with me trying to bring Bigfoots in. I brought some apples. I was going to put them in the trees. I've heard they like apples.
But things didn't go as planned. On the third night, around 10 o'clock, the dog from a nearby cabin, one Sam and his brother-in-law had befriended, started barking and howling.
Well, about the third night, I heard the local dog, a nice fellow that lives down the creek, has a dog, and it befriended us. We used to feed it and everything. Well, one night, it was about 10 o'clock. We'd already been in bed because we fished all day. We were tired. I heard the dog yelling.
Sam stepped outside the camper to quiet her down and saw her staring at something across the creek, looking upward, as if whatever she saw stood 8 or 9 feet tall. Then I heard it, Sam says quietly. A deep guttural growl, low, like it came from the chest of something big.
So he kept on yelling, so I opened the door and I said, "Hey, hubcap." I got on the ground. I said, "What are you yelling at?" And she just kept on yelling. So I looked, and she was looking at us maybe 10, 12 feet away, up like there was something there that could have been 8 or 9, 10 feet tall. I told her, I said, "What are you yelling at?" And then out of the clear blue, I heard a low guttural growl.
The dog bolted back to her owner's cabin, and I figured that was my cue to get back inside and call it a night.
Coming out of nowhere, I looked, there was nothing across the stream, nothing in front of me. As soon as the growl came, the dog skedaddled back to her owner on the other side of the river, and I decided it was about time to call it a night, and I went back in the camper.
On that same trip, the knocks returned, louder, closer. The last one was so close it felt like the air shook when it hit the tree. The concussion was unbelievable, Sam says.
And also on that second time over here, I heard them knocking on on the trees 2 nights, and the last night, one was, it must have been very, very close because it was so loud. It was just unbelievable, the concussion of hearing that, whatever it was, hitting the side of that tree.
Sam has more stories, each stranger than the last. Barefoot tracks the size of a toddler's, discovered miles from any road. A single, loud rock clack in the woods that sent him packing in a hurry. And perhaps most haunting of all, the memory of the DNR quietly closing off roads.
This stream here is called Sawtee Creek. I fished this river from way back in the 80s, and back a few years after I started fishing here, they blocked this road which goes downstream right at Highway 255, and they blockaded it up at the other entrance there. And I called the DNR. They don't know why they blockaded it.
And overnight camping in these remote spots. They say they don't know why it was shut down, Sam says. But I think they know exactly why. They just don't want the public poking around here at night. He gestures at the quiet creek behind him, the water catching the late afternoon sun. I've been fishing here since the 80s. This place has given me some of my best memories, and some of my scariest nights. I can tell you this much, something is still out here, and it doesn't always want to be found. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the leaves overhead. For just a moment it feels like someone or something might be watching from the tree line.
Picked up Ray and I said, let's just get out of here, and we took off. You know, I called the DNR and they're saying they don't know why the place was closed off, but my feelings is that the government, forest people, they know that they're around here, and that's why it's closed off. The only people that you'll see fishing here are people that are local that know about this little back road, and that's really about it.
What happens when the legend you've only heard about comes knocking on your camper door? Today we dive into a terrifying encounter with a creature known as Bigfoot. Deep in the dense wilderness, a camper was unfolding his horrified experience. He thought it was a figure who caused trouble. He rejected the whole thing without hesitation. That was the moment everything changed for him. He couldn't deny it anymore after that. For outdoorsmen, Ted's story became reality after a violent encounter that night.
All of a sudden, the motorhome shook violently. It listed 30 degrees or so. I would anticipate that the tires just about came off the ground.
While sleeping in his motor camp in the middle of Vancouver Island, he went from doubter to believer. He had no idea what was coming. All of a sudden, the motor shook violently. One moment, silence. The next motor home quaked fiercely. It felt like something had grabbed hold on it and refused to let it go. It listed 30 degrees or so, he would anticipate.
I could see the spectrum of this creature, and it was standing on 2 legs for sure, and it had two upper limbs, and it was extremely hairy, matted hair.
That the tires just about came off the ground startled. Why does it feel wrong? He realized then it wasn't an earthquake. Something huge was rocking the motorhome. It hit him like cold water. Something big, really, really big. A shadow blotted out of the window, tall, impossibly still. It was already there. He saw the spectrum of that creature. It was standing on 2 legs for sure. And it had 2 upper limbs, and it was extremely hairy knotted hair. It was the posture that chilled him. It wasn't slithering or skittering. Without thinking, he was up, feet on the floor, body in motion. He ran outside, straight at the thing that has no right to stand like a man. The smell in the air was very stinky, strong, almost dead fish, but musky was very prominent.
I got to the tree line where the firelight had stopped. So basically it was where I was looking into blackness and I'm lit up.
He could hear the footsteps of that creature, and it stopped, as it knew he was there. You heard it too, didn't you?
That's when I could hear the footsteps of this creature stop as it knew I was there.
If I run, will it follow me? The whole moment was still, quiet and eerie. He had no way of defending himself. He pulled himself inside the motorhome, never encountering the creature again. We are going to have a lot of potential Bigfoot evidence. Not much happens in this part of Florida. Has anyone here ever spotted Bigfoot? Hands up. A man named Jeff, unfolding his experience 3 days ago, stopped at the north entrance at Mika River State Park. He felt something was watching him. Suddenly he stopped. He looked to his right where he made eye contact with a very tall, hairy creature. He greeted the creature, a shaggy beast, a simple "hey." Without a word, it turned around and ambled into the woods, vanishing between the trees.
My name is Jeff. This happened 3 days ago. Stopped at the north entrance to Mika River State Park. I felt that something was watching me. I stopped, I looked to my right, and I made eye contact with a very tall, hairy hominid, and I said, "Hey!" And it turned around and ambled off into the woods.
Another boy standing nearby spoke up about his encounter. He was walking and felt like something or someone was staring at him. So he turned around and was astonished to see the large creature. He was amazed. What do you think about the creature? Could it be a Sasquatch? He pulled the scope, zoomed in and put it right at it. It had brown eyes, the nose was flattened out, and all I remember is just watching it. We just turned around and looked like it was completely gone.
Walking and I just felt like somebody was staring at me. So I turned around and I was like, "Who is that?"
I pulled the scope and looked right at it and zoomed in on it. Big brown eyes, the nose was like flattened out, and all I can remember is just watching it breathe. We just turned around and head back to the house, turned around and looked, and it was completely gone.
In April 2012, a man was hitchhiking, and he was going to go down and camp out underneath the underpass. He lay down and slept for a short time, woke up to a weird, strange, and unfamiliar sound that was coming right down the embankment. It was a terrifying moment. We know Mayaka was a hotspot, and the number of witnesses at the town hall just confirmed that. The woman rubbed her eyes, convinced it couldn't be what it looked like. Bigfoot. They all compare it to a bear, a cow, and a human all at once is what it sounded like. The hair was very long, just flowing in the wind all the way down the body.
In April of 2012, and I was going to go down and camp out underneath the underpass. And slept for a little while, and I woke up to a strange sound that was coming right down the embankment. Just like the ah, ah.
Another camper spotted two big red eyes. He backed up, eyes popping. He was like, either I'm hallucinating or that's Bigfoot. No way. The investigators are collecting some pretty interesting reports from all across Southwest Florida, but there are few to focus on, including some that are very recent. They are going to look into those reports and hopefully they can nail down that area that's in the general Mayaka.
And I was like, holy crap.
We're getting some pretty interesting reports here from all across Southwest Florida, but there's a few we want to focus on, including some that are very recent. We're going to look into these reports and hopefully we can nail down an area that's in the general Mayaka area that we can focus on for our final night.
The road was quiet, and he walked it simply to stretch his legs and clear his mind. The air felt strange, and the creepy sensation made him stop. Slowly, he turned to the left, searching for the source of feeling. His breath caught as he made eye contact with a massive ape-like creature watching him silently. He'd heard the tales, but never believed them, until now. That thing could only be Bigfoot. He gave a hesitate, "Hey," and the creature simply ambled off into the trees.
I was walking down the road, just getting a little exercise, and I got a creepy feeling. So I stopped and I looked to the left, and I immediately made eye contact with a big hairy hominid. I knew the only thing it could be was a Bigfoot. Finally, I said, "Hey!" And it ambled off into the palmettos and disappeared.
When the sun sets and darkness falls, a different world awakens. The night, often feared, often misunderstood, becomes a stage of stories unseen in daylight. Ronnie and Mariah caught in the middle of two vocalizations. They have vocalization on both sides of them, so they're in front and behind of where they're just traveling into. It sounds to Russell like they've actually placed themselves in the middle of that attention. "Hey Ronnie, there's something moving. Did you hear it? It's coming from over there."
We are caught in the middle of two vocalizations.
Copy.
They have vocalizations on both sides of them, so they're in front and behind of where they're just traveling into. It sounds to me like they've actually placed themselves in the center of that attention.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
It's coming from that direction.
It watched from the edges. Its involvement was secret, a secret that could shatter lives if ever brought to light. They have no idea what that is. In the dead of night, something hit the ground. Something either fell or was thrown just now. There's definitely something moving there. He thought something was coming up their way. It's definitely a vantage point for them to be up higher. She could still hear it up, sharp and sudden. The sound they heard was back there. Whatever made that sound is probably coming that way, because they keep on hearing those creepy sounds. What do you think? What kind of animal sounds like that?
Did you hear that?
Yes,
Something either fell or was thrown just now.
There's definitely movement over here. I think something's coming up this way. I feel like we need to be on higher ground.
All right, well then let's go that way. Well, it's definitely a vantage point for them to be up higher.
Yeah.
That wasn't an echo. That was something else. Something, or someone, was tracking Ronnie and Mariah. At first it was just one branch snap, then another, then three. All of them were in different directions. Too many, too close. It had a pattern now, a purpose. They are not trying to catch them. They are trying to trap them, aren't they? Russell knows for a fact that if they call for him and need his help, he'll definitely go.
So you think whatever we heard up there is now down there?
Yeah, they're tracking us. They're coming around now. Oh boy. 1, 2, 3. There are 3, not 2.
I know for a fact that if they call for me, or they need my help, I go.
The Sync Sasquatch footage in Logan Canyon of Utah. It became clear to investigators after doing a size comparison on location, using a man that is 6 feet tall and 220 pounds, how large this Sasquatch is around 1 to 2 feet taller than the human is, and is over twice as wide and twice as thick. It's too big to a man, too heavy. He is confident that the video is legit, and believes a large hominid species did indeed exist. This thing, whatever it is, it's not human. He kept his eyes fixed in the direction. The creature had walked the fading footsteps, stirring a quiet question in the back of his mind. What was it really searching for? He discovered dozens of tracks scattered across the ground, fresh, overlapping and hinting at a presence both recent and elusive, as if the creature had left silent warnings. No way. This Sasquatch video is next level, wild, mysterious, and totally mind-blowing when compared to a large man.
and 220 pounds how large this Sasquatch is. It's around 1 to 2 feet taller than he is, and is over twice as wide and twice as thick. Searching in the direction the creature was walking, we discovered dozens of tracks along a creek that are around 15 inches long and nearly 8 inches wide at the toe splay.
Their expedition led them to the famous Deadly Bomb Site, a place whispered about in fearful legends of Bigfoot. They discovered deep, massive, giant tracks marked the ground, an eerie signature left behind by something vast and elusive. A few feet from a log structure that contains massive logs on a steep mountainside. The track was sunk several inches deep into the soft earth, and its toes stove in the deep mountainside. The track was over 14 inches long and was nearly 8 inches wide at the toe splay. An enormous print that spoke of a creature far larger than anything they had ever seen. Only a few steps ago, from a massive log structure, the huge Bigfoot track pressed deep into the earth, a hunting reminder that something immense and unknown was near. This Bigfoot track was only a few feet away from a massive log structure. It was pointed right towards this structure, which appeared to be filled with heavily relocated logs.
The track was sunk in a few inches, and its toes drove into the steep mountainside. The track was over 14 inches long and was nearly 8 inches wide at the toe splay. This Bigfoot track was only a few feet away from a massive log structure. It was pointed right towards this structure that appears to be...
It was winter of 1988, the kind of cold that hangs heavy in the air and turns every breath into fog. Snow lined the narrow roads near Salt Fork State Park in Ohio, and the forest beyond the asphalt looked like a sea of white-dusted trees. Rich LaMonica was finishing up his deliveries for the day, driving his route just like he had 100 times before. The world was quiet, the only sound the hum of his truck's engine and the occasional crunch of snow beneath the tires. Then something caught his eye. Up ahead, on the edge of the woods, something massive moved. At first, Rich thought it might be a deer. This was Ohio, after all. But this was no deer. The figure was enormous, broad-shouldered, and completely covered in dark fur. Black, or maybe a deep chocolate brown, it stood out starkly against the white snow as it stepped toward the tree line. Without thinking twice, Rich hit the brakes.
Taking the straightaway, about halfway through the straightaway is when I noticed a creature, or whatever it was, going through the woods. I couldn't see if it had hair on it, but it was definitely black or a very, very dark brown.
The truck slid slightly on the icy road before coming to a halt. His heart was hammering. Curiosity and adrenaline kicked in as he jumped out of the cab. If that really was Bigfoot, he wasn't about to let it just disappear without trying to get a better look. Rich ran toward the tree line, boots crunching on the icy ground. But the figure was fast. By the time he reached the edge of the woods, it had already vanished into the dense, snow-laden trees. All he could see were a few faint impressions in the snow.
But it was definitely black or a very, very dark brown from head to toe.
LaMonica quickly pulled his truck over.
I hopped down and ran back to see if I could glimpse it any further. It was huge. It was absolutely wide and huge. Because of the outline of the snow and no trees and no leaves, I was able to see it very well, in fact.
Spaced far apart, too far apart to be a man's stride. He stood there in the silence, catching his breath, listening. The forest was still. No birds, no movement, just the echo of his own breathing. Whatever it was, it had been bigger than any man he'd ever seen, with a build that looked more like a linebacker than a human. For years after, Rich replayed that moment over and over in his mind. Could it have been a bear? Maybe. But bears don't walk upright like that.
Around, but I didn't see anything moving. And because I was scheduled to make deliveries, couldn't stay too long.
And whatever this was, it had been on two legs, moving quickly and deliberately toward the cover of the woods. Salt Fork has a reputation as one of the biggest Bigfoot hotspots in the United States, with dozens of reported sightings over the years. Rich had heard those stories before, but on that snowy day in 1988, it stopped being just a story for him. He may not have gotten the perfect look at the creature, but he saw enough to know one thing: there was something out there that didn't belong. And it was watching the road just as closely as he was watching the woods. Some encounters stay with you forever. For Paul, a retired soldier from Jackson, New Jersey, the strange and unexplainable began long before the Army. His first brush with the unknown came when he was just 6 years old.
Classical, I could say conical-looking head, but I saw a shadow moving across the curtains, because my mom had these they were like not solid, but you could still see out. But I saw it moving, and then I saw its shadow, like, you know what I'm saying, it's here, and then the shadow's like causes the shadow across there. And I was looking at it like, what is that? I'm only like 6, 7 years old.
As a boy, he would often hear scratching at the window in the dead of night. At first, he thought it might be branches in the wind. Curiosity got the best of him. He pulled himself up, peered through the glass, and froze. A figure, large, dark, and unmistakably walking upright, crossed the front yard in slow, deliberate strides. The sight was so surreal that his young mind struggled to process it. But it didn't end there.
I can't explain it. I don't know what it was. But I'm really, really fortunate that I had curtains like that in my room, because if this thing was standing outside my window and it was looking, I seen it staring in, I'm really glad I only heard the scratching and never got to look at his face, because I think Dinks would be a lot different for me right now. But I thank the man upstairs for like not letting me see that one. I'm glad I just saw the silhouette and not his mug in my window like some people have.
After that, strange events became part of Paul's life. Odd sounds outside his home, a constant sense of being watched, and the eerie feeling that something, or someone, was always nearby. That early experience etched itself into his memory, and when he joined the military, he carried that fear with him.
And it was back in the day, Jackson was very rural. It was farms, country, cows. And we had cows. We were on a farm. Every now and again, I would hear like scratching on my window. Didn't think nothing of it. And then I left my room because I turned the light off, and I went out into the living room. You know, the dining room, living room, and then the living room had my parents had these big bay windows.
During his time at Fort Bragg in the early 1990s, Paul experienced something even stranger. Out in the field on a quiet night, he saw 3 glowing orbs moving toward him. First red, then green, then blue. They moved in unison, gliding silently across the darkness. The lights didn't behave like flares or anything man-made he recognized, and as quickly as they appeared, they were gone, leaving Paul staring at the empty night sky, shaken and more confused than ever.
The red orb was a dull red, and it illuminated the whole area red. So when it went from my right to left, it illuminated, and you saw the trees move, and it went down, then a green orb, and then a blue orb, and you're like, what the heck was that? And I'm looking like that, and then all of a sudden the trees above me started like going crazy. And all I can describe it, you ever been in the trees and a helicopter's hovering above you? That's what it was like. It was like a downwash from a helicopter above you, but there was no noise.
But nothing could prepare him for what came years later, after he had left the military. He was working as a loader operator near the Jackson-Manchester border, a remote area with miles of forest. It was a bitterly cold Monday morning, around 6:30 a.m. The kind of morning where the cold bites through every layer of clothing. He had just started his routine, firing up the heavy equipment. As he walked back toward his truck, the world went still, and then it came.
So the one morning, it had to be late December, early January, and it was like 6:30 in the morning. It's still black out, you know, it's dark. And it was like maybe 10 degrees out. It was cold. So I cranked up all the machines, let them run so that, you know, all the oil and fluids get all warm so I can move them. I parked my truck in the hole, and it was about a half mile. I had to walk back to get the machines.
A scream tore through the tree line, so loud and guttural it stopped him dead in his tracks. It was nothing like a coyote or a fox cry. This was deep, primal, almost human, but far too powerful. Paul's military instincts immediately kicked in. He scanned the tree line, every sense on high alert. The scream came again, this time closer, and he saw movement. Massive trees shaking, something big coming through the brush.
And it made the hair stand up. I had a cup of coffee and a butter roll in my hand. You know, I was just drinking my stuff and walking to get my... And I actually spun around, and I don't remember touching the ground. I just remember, and I'm looking back towards my truck. And then I see these pine trees moving, like something's coming through these pine trees, and it's TO'd. And it's coming towards, like, the edge of the tree line that's up on that.
At that moment, panic set in. Paul had faced danger before, but this was different. This wasn't an enemy soldier or a hostile situation he had trained for. This felt wrong. His body went rigid, his feet rooted to the frozen ground.
I'm too far to my truck to try to run to it. So I just said, you know what? This is all in your head. Don't worry about it. Even though I seen those pine trees move. You know, I mean, something moved these pine trees, moved it, physically moved these pine trees.
Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw it. A towering silhouette stood among the trees. Broad shoulders, massive frame, motionless but radiating a presence that sent adrenaline flooding through his body. The air felt charged, almost electric, and Paul swears he could feel its anger, its rage, directed squarely at him. He felt completely exposed, vulnerable, like prey.
And I said, all I started going through in my mind, my dad, they're not going to find my body. They're not going to find my body. Because this thing, whatever it was full of anger and rage. It stopped, and I guess these things can read your mind. They say they can, but I don't know. But I sat there, and I said, man, I survived all this crap from the military.
At that moment, his mind started racing. He thought of his family, his mom, his dad, and the horrifying possibility that no one would ever find his body if this thing decided to attack. The thought of death out there, alone and in the cold, was all too real. Many people ask him why he didn't do something, why he didn't grab a weapon or try to scare it off. But Paul is blunt. He was unarmed, carrying nothing but his coffee. Confronting it would have been suicide. His every instinct told him not to move, not to provoke it. The two of them stood there in silence, man and beast, locked in a standoff. Paul says he could feel it thinking, calculating, almost as if it was reading his mind, weighing its options. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. The forest grew quiet again. Paul never had another encounter like that, but the experience left him forever changed. Even now, as a retired man, he speaks with a mixture of awe and fear when recalling that morning. For Paul, there's no question about what he saw that day. It wasn't a man. It wasn't a bear. Whatever it was intelligent, powerful, and terrifyingly close. And for him, that moment still feels as real and immediate as it did all those years ago. Dr. Hannah Straight is known for her adventurous van life explorations, taking her rugged F-250 truck camper into some of the most remote and breathtaking landscapes in America. But on this trip, her usual off-grid serenity was interrupted by something that still has her shaken. It started as a normal night. She parked her truck, set up camp, and climbed into the bed above her cab to sleep. The world outside was quiet, the stars bright above the dark wilderness. But sometime in the dead of night, she woke to a sound no camper ever wants to hear, something moving around her truck. At first, she thought it might be a curious animal, maybe a raccoon or coyote sniffing around. But then she heard the sound of rummaging, deliberate and heavy.
So I wasn't even going to record this video, but I honestly can't even comprehend what I saw last night. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. I'm not going to disclose where because I don't want a million people coming out here trying to figure out what I possibly saw. I was sleeping, dead asleep last night above my cab. All of a sudden, I heard something rummaging through my cab. I was trying to be super quiet, super still. I didn't want to move because I didn't know what was in the back of my truck.
That's when she saw it. Something massive. Dark, tall, and standing upright, the figure moved with startling precision, clearly bipedal. And then, just as suddenly as she spotted it, the figure turned and bolted into the darkness, vanishing into the tree line. The most terrifying part? Her doors were unlocked. She had been sleeping alone, vulnerable, and whatever it was had been just feet away.
And I rolled over and peeked through the window, and I swear there was like this huge thing standing there going through my stuff. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. There's no way it's a person. I'm miles from civilization. I always lock my doors at night. I must have forgotten. He must have heard me, or whatever it was heard me, because it dropped everything and scampered off into the woods behind me, like ran. It was on 2 legs, so it definitely wasn't a bear, because last time I checked, I've seen a lot of bears, and bears run on 4 legs.
Shaken but determined, Dr. Hannah decided she wouldn't just pack up and leave. Instead, she prepared herself for the night ahead. She set up her camera gear, positioned her lights, and decided to stay awake and alert. This time, ready to capture whatever came near her camp.
This is a switch I'm going to use if I see whatever it was lurking in the woods. I'm going to flip the lights on, turn the camera on, and hopefully I can get it on camera. Well, I didn't get much sleep last night for obvious reasons because I had an unidentified creature crawling around in the cab of my truck. And tonight, I want to stay up all night so I can potentially catch it on camera.
Hours passed. 3 tense, silent hours of waiting, listening, scanning the shadows. Every crack of a twig made her heart skip. Then, she thought she saw something, a shadow moving between the trees. That was enough.
Still waiting around. Haven't seen or heard anything. It's getting kind of late. Did you see that thing? I wonder if the outside camera got it.
Dr. Hannah decided to trust her instincts. She packed up her things, climbed into the driver's seat, and moved on from that spot. Whatever had been out there, she didn't plan on sticking around to give it a second chance.
I don't know what that thing was, but that was insane. I've never seen anything like that creature before. It's just ripping through the woods. It is terrifying, and I need to get out of here right now.
Her story is a reminder that van life isn't always serene sunsets and campfire nights. Sometimes, the wilderness looks back. Rest in peace, Mike Woolley. His story is one of the most compelling and chilling Bigfoot encounters ever told. Mike was from Kyachi, Louisiana, and in December of 1981, his life changed forever. It was a beautiful, cold winter day, about 30 degrees, perfect for deer hunting. Mike parked his truck halfway down an old logging road and walked the rest of the way to his deer stand, hoping to keep the area quiet and avoid spooking the deer.
My name is Mike Woolley. I'm from Kyachi, Louisiana. I had an encounter back in December of 1981 with a Bigfoot while deer hunting. It was a beautiful December day, perfect weather for a hunt. Temperature was about 30 degrees. I got to my deer stand that evening, about 3 o'clock, got on it, and I was sitting there, and I was facing to the north, and my deer stand was located about 1.5 miles down an old logging road.
He hadn't been in his stand for more than 30 minutes when a young doe came crashing out of the briars from the east. She was drenched in sweat, breathing hard, and ran right up to Mike's stand before collapsing beside it. Whatever was chasing her was close. Mike's first thought was that it must have been a big buck, so he prepared himself for a shot. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement.
Well, it must have been, I hadn't been there no more than 30 minutes, and this little young doe deer come running from the east out of some briars and brush that there's no way a human could walk through that. And first thing hit my mind, it was a big buck. So when I raised my head back up, I was turning my head, and out of my peripheral vision, I seen something hop to a tree. And it was tall, about 7-8 foot tall, and it was black, real hairy, like a gorilla.
Something darted behind a tree. When Mike turned his head fully, he saw it. A massive figure, easily 7 to 8 feet tall, black or very dark brown, and covered in thick hair. At first, he thought it had to be a man in a suit, some kind of prank. He even spoke out loud, telling the figure to take off the costume and leave. But the creature didn't move. It just stood there, staring at him with an expression Mike could only describe as sinister.
So the first thing hit my mind, it was somebody dressed up in a suit trying to scare me off my good deer hunting spot. Well, immediately I go to talking to this thing, telling it, you know, take the head off, get out of here, you know, don't come back, you know, this ain't no joke, I don't find it funny, you know, just leave. Well, this thing was just eyeballing me, you know, looking at me and really giving me some sinister looks. And I knew right then, I said, you know, something ain't right.
Through the scope of his high-powered rifle, Mike got a clear look. The creature's face was disturbingly human-like. He could see the eyelashes, the jawline, even the flat, human-like teeth. That's when fear truly sets in. Suddenly, the creature let out a roar, deep and powerful, like a lion.
And I looked through the scope at the creature. It was cold, you know, the moisture was coming out of its mouth, its nostrils. It looked really, really human. The face was human. The eyelashes, I could see the eyelashes, you know, the eyes, the teeth were big, big teeth. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and it's really PO'd at me. And it lets out a roar like a lion.
From somewhere about 100 yards away, a loud whistle responded. The creature turned its head, whistled back in the same tone, then looked back at Mike. He knew he was in trouble. Mike jumped down from the stand and ran toward his truck, crashing through the brush. Behind him, he could hear the creature bulldozing its way through the woods, closing in fast.
Well, about 100 yards to the northeast, there's this really, really loud whistle comes back. I'm in trouble, big trouble, because I'd heard about them. Well, I jumped down off my stand and I'm running to the west to get to my truck. And I look over my left shoulder and this creature is running through the woods and it is just moving brush. It's running through the brush and it's bulldozing the brush down. And I knew, man, this thing is gonna get me. It is mad. It is PO'd, it's gonna get me.
When he reached his truck, he had one chance. He spun, fired a warning shot, and the bullet splintered the bark of a tree just feet from the creature's face. That was enough. The creature stopped. As Mike jumped into his truck, he caught sight of a second one, the one that had been whistled for, standing farther up the logging road. There weren't one, but two of them. Mike drove away, shaken but alive.
Well, I got in a truck, I'm driving off, I look in my rearview mirror, and lo and behold, his buddy that he'd signaled had been tailing me coming up the logging road. I didn't have but one chasing me, I had two. Well, they kind of stood there and looked at each other as I was driving off.
His advice to anyone who ever encounters one of these creatures is simple. Do not engage, do not make eye contact, and do not point a gun at them. If you do, you might not make it out alive.
My recommendation to anybody, if you ever have an encounter in the woods, is don't fool with them, don't make eye contact, don't point, and surely don't point a gun. Do not engage this creature, because if you do, you will lose.
Ohio is one of the most active Bigfoot hotspots in the United States, second only to the Pacific Northwest. Hundreds of reports pour in from across the state. Sightings, tracks, and even strange, unexplainable vocalizations. But one story from the outskirts of Minerva, Ohio stands out. Josh and his family live near a chicken farm on the edge of town, surrounded by open land and thick woods. For years, they brushed off the strange noises they heard at night. Then one day, Josh's kids came running inside, swearing they had seen Bigfoot near the fence line by the pile of dead chickens. Josh laughed it off until he saw it for himself. It was broad daylight when it happened. Josh, along with a neighbor farmer, saw an all-black figure crossing 300 yards of open land with shocking speed. It wasn't running like a man, nor lumbering like a bear. Instead, it moved with a strange, mechanical precision, almost like a robot. Josh, who stands 6 feet 3 inches and weighs over 300 pounds, swears the creature was much larger than him. It was solid black from head to toe, with no visible eyes or facial features. Just a massive, dark figure moving deliberately across the field before disappearing into the tree line. Josh is no stranger to the woods. He owns thermal equipment and often goes coyote hunting in the area. But he insists he's never seen anything like this before or since. To make things even stranger, there have been eerie vocalizations recorded in the area, deep, powerful calls that don't sound like dogs or any known wildlife.
What I'm recording right now sounds very similar to what I heard back in 1991 or 92. Does not sound like a dog at all.
Whatever stalks the farmlands of Minerva, it isn't just a story. And for Josh, it turned him from a skeptic into a believer overnight. The deeper we look, the stranger it gets. From wood knocks in Warwoman Dell to jet black figures in Cuyahoga Valley. From hypnotized children to rock-throwing giants, these encounters leave us with more questions than answers. Are these creatures guardians of the wild? Or warnings we're not meant to ignore? The wilderness keeps its secrets well, but one thing is certain. Out there, beyond the firelight, something is still watching.